We often talk about anxiety and depression levels in our kids right now, but how do we help them find happiness and be successful? And what can they learn from failure? Well, today we're getting some expert help so our kids can thrive. Today we are joined by Dr. Michele Borba. She's an educational psychologist, a parenting and child expert, and a best-selling author and speaker. So do remember, we want you to be part of the conversation. For the next half hour, you can post your questions and your comments. You can submit them anytime under the live stream of this show on our Facebook pages. Dr. Borba, I want to start with why some kids are struggling while others seem to, be getting it right. What is there some key out there?
What we're discovering is that there's amazing superpower called resilience. And that's not something you're born with. It has nothing to do with IQ, GPA, or zip code, but it's a skill set that's kind of like protective buffers and factors. And so when kids have adversity and challenges, I don't care what their temperament is or their birth order, if they have some of those skills along the way that they can access, like problem solving or how to reduce the stress or how to think outside the box, what'll happen is they're more likely to handle that challenge so they can keep on going and their resilience stays intact. The best thing, Elizabeth, is all of that is teachable, but we've been focusing so much on the GPA that we've overlooked that other part of our kid. And all of a sudden the pandemic came and we went, wow, they need something more.
I know for me, I'm a mom, and I talk to other moms, and we try to kind of source out what works and what doesn't, what's happening in our house, and try to be honest about this experience of parenting, because I think you want to get the help out there so that you help your children navigate in the right
Yes.
way. So I know in one of your books, you have many of them, but in Thrivers, you really say there's these 7 essential character strengths that can set them up for happiness and for greater accomplishment in life. So let's focus on first that self-confidence and what that really means.
Self-confidence seems to be the foundation of resilience, and it's really who I am, not what my parents want me to be. And the most amazing thing, Elizabeth, is now we do know, according to science, is some of the kids who are able to bounce back better actually have simple little things of knowledge of their strengths. I want to key in on this because we've got the holidays coming up, and it's a great time to watch and observe each of our kids a little bit more carefully. Were they a little more engaged, a little more eager, a little more excited? That's usually when they're engaged in a strength area. And I'm not talking about your science or your health, but it could be. But maybe it's a hobby, like listening to music, this when they just tune in, or they miss that soccer field, or going out for a walk. One of the highest correlations to resilient children is they have a hobby, a healthy hobby. And I think a lot of them haven't been able to use that hobby. So if your child doesn't have one, this is the perfect time. Start introducing hobbies, whatever they could be, healthy ones as a family, because we now know the kid is also more likely to take that hobby away with him when he goes off to college, which is the number one time our kids are most likely to drop out. Freshman year, first semester of college.
All right, what about this understanding of empathy and sharing someone else's feeling, acting it compassionately toward others? I tell my kids, if you could be anything, just be kind. I don't know
No.
if that's the right thing to say, but that's what I want. I want you to be kind to people.
Empathy is the second highest correlation to character strengths of a resilient child. Our children are hardwired for it, Elizabeth, but we need to cultivate it. And the gateway to empathy is emotional literacy. Being able to read somebody else's pain or see what their feelings are, or he looks upset, or dad sounds frustrated, or look how he's standing. Now, the key on that is all of the teens that I've been talking to every day, I've been doing focus groups, say we can't read each other like we used to because they've been looking at screens. We're talking about a digital driven population of kids. So talk feelings more naturally with your kids. You can watch Inside Out together. How is he feeling? Go to the supermarket. Wow, look at that guy. How do you think he's doing right now? Talk feelings, particularly more to our sons than our daughters. Yale says at age 2, we're already talking feelings far more to our daughters than our sons. So simple little ways. Don't make it like, okay, it's 6 o'clock, let's talk feelings, but weave it in naturally because I think our kids are regressing in that. And it's so key for their resilience.
Now, what about self control? Getting so mad if you don't make the play on the field or you don't make the team, or acting, you do make the play and now you're the showboat. Like, how do you manage like finding that right area to be in?
Teens are telling me the number one thing is give us a repertoire of things we can do to reduce the stress. Mindfulness works for some kids, said one teen, doesn't work for me. So, what can I do? Here's what you may want to do during the holidays: start introducing different kinds of ways to reduce stress. For some kids, it could be a koosh ball. For other kids, it's recognizing what my stress signs are before I explode. That's our biggest thing. We wait for the exorcism and then we tell the kid to calm down and it doesn't work. Each child is a little different. So maybe the first gold mine of the parent is saying, I noticed, not it is a discipline ploy, but I noticed you're starting to get stressed because look what you're doing. Or I noticed you're starting to get stressed because look, you're breathing a little faster. Each child has their own unique signs. Point it out. Then the moment they start to get stressed, and Elizabeth, it could be 2 weeks later, it could be 3 weeks later. When they know their stress signs, now what we do, I'm telling you, the best thing I've seen is I worked on Army bases, and Navy SEALs told me what they do is they immediately know their stress signs, say to themselves inside their head, chill out or calm down or something. And then they do a 1-2 breath, deep breath from deep in their stomach, like they're riding up an elevator. Hold it and then slowly let it out. The exhale is twice as long as the inhale. If the most elite forces in the world do that, we've got to. The caveat, though, is you can't make those stress management work unless you practice them over and over again. And then you got a little guy, that may not work for the little guy. So I was in a classroom, absolutely precious 6-year-olds. The teacher said they just breathe too quickly out and they don't get the exhale inhale. So she puts them on the floor. She puts bean bags on their tummies and she said, no, 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 no. Turtle needs a slow, slow breath down. What happens is they got the 1-2 breath from repetitive practice. 3 minutes later, half the class was asleep. And I'm going, this is a gold mine. Find what works for your child. Do it as a family. And your child will be able to use that stress reducer the rest of their life.
Now, what about integrity? You want your kids to be good humans, and sometimes it's hard to make the right decision, especially when there is that peer pressure around.
Yeah, integrity seems to be critical for resilience for another reason. Kids who are resilient generally have a strong moral code or know what they stand for because some kind of challenges that our kids face are peer pressure. The best thing I've ever seen was actually, you'll love this story. I was in Florida and I was talking to high school teachers and they all said, go talk to Mia. She's got the greatest integrity of anybody. Find out how she got that way. So I pulled out this 16-year-old and I said, Mia, every teacher is asking me to interview to find out where you got that integrity. She laughed and she said, quote unquote, Elizabeth, it was how I was raised. So I said, okay, fess up. Here's the best strategy we can all do this weekend. She said, when I was 6, my mom and dad pulled me and my 2 younger brothers off to, the family room. We walked in and there was chart paper and marking pens all over the floor. Dad said, sit down. We're going to try to figure out what kind of family we want to be remembered for. So we're going to start brainstorming words. One of them was your term, kindness, Elizabeth, but there wasn't any wrong, like honest, or it could be accountable or responsible or respectful. We kept brainstorming words until Dad said, there's no more room. Let's choose. And we chose honest. I said, okay, so how'd you remember it? She laughed and said, it was impossible not to. My mother must have said it 50 times a day. She dropped me off at school. Remember, we're the honest Duns. That was their last name. My dad made a plaque. We're the honest Duns. We do something wrong in discipline. Was that an honest Dun thing to do? We'd be watching TV. Boy, they were honest Duns. My parents said it so much, we became it. So I think the key is we overlook, what are you saying so much that your kids are internalizing it? That's going to help them when push comes to shove. And it's a great time during the holidays to start revamping it and taking it up.
Yeah, especially because, kids will do what you do, not what you say to do.
Exactly. Oh, I love that, because one of the highest correlations to resilience of where kids are getting these skills is they're watching somebody else do it right or watch out, it could be the negative. Are you practicing the stress management skills? Are you saying, wow, that wasn't an honest done thing to do, I need to stay true to my word and fess up to what I just said to my friend? And you're the adult. Kids will watch it and they will copy.
And now this idea of curiosity and really taking risks, right?
Yeah.
And there's a vulnerability in that.
There is a vulnerability. And the other trend that we're seeing, lots of new trends based on the after effects of COVID, is our children are becoming a little more risk adverse. They're afraid to think outside the box. When stress builds, Elizabeth, it's hard to think outside the box, particularly if you're so overwhelmed and worried about your grade. So the first thing is make mistakes okay in your house. Fess up and say, oh boy, I just blew it. But here's what I'll do. Here's the key. Next time, when we find that parents, first of all, allow mistakes, kids are going to breathe. Second of all, stop coddling and always rescuing your child. Because I know you don't want them to fail. But in reality, a child who does and knows he can bounce back is a kid more likely to thrive. And that's one of the ways you raise a thriver. You could also help him start to brainstorm. Elizabeth, when we always rescue, you rob resilience. But when instead you replace it and you model, here's what to do next time, it's going to help. For instance, the next time your child looks upset, I use an acronym called STAND. STAND. I always use acronyms because kids remember them better. But what I say is, well, just say the problem. By the way, research says for a 3 and 4-year-old, if they just say what's bugging them, half the time their behavior improves because they get it out of their head and they say it. But then T is, okay, now take a calm breath. That's the first thing. Just breathe, breathe.
Sure.
T is tell what's bugging you.
Okay.
What's the problem?
We're
A is
going to get to the rest of that acronym